Georgia jail deputy was stabbed to death with his own knife that he carried to work. A fellow deputy was also stabbed, but he survived his wounds. It's not a very good morning this morning to hear this news. We'll talk about the stabbing and about weapons in prison. But first, let's all say a prayer for the families and friends of these two officers, one deceased, which is Deputy Christian Knight, shown here, and the other officer that was stabbed was Jerome Michael Williams, who survived his stab wounds. Both stabbed by this scumbag right here, okay, inmate Albert Booz, who was in jail for charges of criminal damage to property, criminal trespassing, and giving a false name to law enforcement officers. Another example of why every inmate can be dangerous at any given moment. We're seeing way too much of these hostage situations and officers being killed and injured. If anybody ever tells you, oh, this is a rare incident, this does not happen that often, I say baloney. I say they're wrong, because I'm reading too much. Too many headlines, folks. Every week somewhere an officer's getting attacked, stabbed, taken hostage. This is not a rare incident. It's happening way too much across our country. And these people that are blaming the officers, as in the hostage situation in Oklahoma, where protesters stood outside and said, hey, they didn't have to kill the inmate. Well, folks, I got news for you. The inmate did not have to take the officer hostage. The inmate did not, in Oklahoma, have to stab the officer and beat the officer. The inmates did not have to hold a knife to the officer's throat. For those of you that are not sure, this is a criminal act. A person's life is in danger, and deadly force is definitely okay. Always blaming the suspects. Always blaming the officers as the villains and not these dirty suspects. Such as this one in Georgia and the one in Oklahoma hostage situation. Oh, it's always the officers. This has got to stop. This way of thinking has got to stop. And the media has got to stop allowing these protesters to blame the officers when they're trying to save a human life of a correctional officer. If an inmate is being attacked by this same dirtbag, officers are going to go and get that inmate off of that inmate, or if they have to use deadly force to save another inmate, they will. The street goes both ways, folks. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Now back to our story here in Georgia. Officers in this jail are allowed to carry knives in the jail in order to cut materials that inmates could use to commit suicide. And I knew when I heard the officer had a knife why he's carrying it. Maybe someone's trying to tie their bed sheets together and commit suicide and so forth. But in the jail I came from, cutting tools were a secure item, and they're stored in a lockbox. So if someone is about to commit suicide, you call for the cutting tool, and the officer in the control room unlocks the box and gets the cutting tool out. We did that for an obvious reason, and I'm not trying to downplay or play Monday morning quarterback, but I think safety is a huge issue for our officers and civilian staff in the prison. So I don't like any jail or prison that allows knives to be carried into the facility. You're bringing in a weapon, and these dirtbags will use it against you. Example, you're allowed to carry a knife, and you got it in your pocket. I hope it's in your pocket. I hope they're not carried on the belt where it's visible to the inmates. I don't want them in there at all, my opinion. But at least have it tucked in your pocket if you're allowed to carry them in a jail so the inmates can't see it. But no matter how this situation was, it turned out bad. The inmate used the officer's own knife against him. But for that reason, I don't like these knives carried into the jail or prison. Inmates will take you hostage in certain cases. They'll get your knife and use it against you. In this case, now, the officers were transporting this inmate to a suicide cell, okay? And the investigation is ongoing on how the handcuffed inmate got the knife from the officer and stabbed both officers with it. Now remember, the inmate was handcuffed. Was he handcuffed in the front? If he was handcuffed in the front, I like felony handcuff. Felony handcuff. Cuff them in the back. Can they still get a weapon from you with their hands cuffed in the back? Yes, but not as easy. I did a video a while back on how inmates can still obtain a handgun during transport and shoot from behind the back, and I actually demonstrated it. So, yes, they can do this from being handcuffed in the front or the back, but the back is much harder for them to get to your weapons or to your accessories or to your tools that you use at work. It's a bad situation. I just wanted to bring the part out about I don't like knives being allowed for officers to carry while on duty for this reason. And that's all I'm going to say about that. The rest is being investigated as to whether the officers used policy or procedure. But you know what? Right now, let's prosecute this inmate to the fullest. I don't want to hear that he has mental issues. I know that's going to come up by the defense, and they're going to try to prolong this. This inmate will live on, and he'll eat food, and he'll watch TV, and who knows, he may even play certain games in the jail or prison until we can get him in the courtroom and convict him. I would love to see the death penalty. Can it be proven beyond a reasonable doubt far enough for the death penalty? If not, at least give him life in prison. But you hate to see this guy go on and live, and these brutal attacks on officers are just going way too strong lately. Let's don't give the inmates any more ammunition to use against us. I'm hoping that the jail where this occurred, and I do have to look at my notes for this, Bibb County Jail, Georgia, I am really hoping that they look at their own policy and procedure and change that. Change that policy. Do not allow officers to carry their own knives into the jail. My opinion only. If that offends anyone, I'm sorry, but I don't want to see any more officers killed with their own knives. All right, we'll keep you posted. Next up, I'm trying to get a few video requests in. I've got one request for 6 inmates who tunneled out of Glades Correctional Institution. If I would fill them in on that story, but this was back in 1995. Very interesting story. Very movie-like story. I believe there was a documentary done on it, and it won some awards. I'll go over that story per that person's request to me. Thank you for watching Gary York, True Prison Stories. Let's pray again for the family and friends of these officers, and pray that the officer that is deceased, Christopher Knight, rest in peace. God bless you all. Stay safe. True Prison Stories.